What up, Homedawgs? My name is Gokey Gamer, and welcome everybody to week 1 of the NBBL Main League Academy, where this week we're going to be going up against Jarock, coach of the Henrico Haxorus. And before I get distracted with it, ignore the mustache. I don't know why it looks like that. It is even in real life, I swear. It's the light. I blame the light. But yeah, welcome to this video. Before we get started with the battle, I just wanted to very quickly mention, A, there's not going to be a team preview for this video, and B, this is going to be a purely post-comment unscripted recording. Originally, I was going to script post-commentary. It's going to be similar to what I did last season with a mix of post-commentary and live commentary. Unfortunately, I just didn't have the time to actually do that. I explain more about this at the end of the video, so please check out the end of the video as well. After the battle, please continue watching because I talk about some really important stuff. I talk about the rest of the season, what that's going to look like for me in terms of making content for the rest of the season, as well as the low-tier division, because, spoiler alert, we're in the low-tier division. And if you guys are wondering why you haven't seen the draft breakdown, I ran out of time for that too. I explained that at the end of the video as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there at the very beginning of the video. I'll go ahead and walk to the battle now. I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, I apologize that it is just purely unscripted post-commentary, me talking about the battle, pretty much, that's all. But it was just something I had to do, so I'm really sorry. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and whap to it. Whap! Whap, and we are back. So yeah, like I said in the intro, I'm doing a post-commentary, and I'll explain a bit more why after this whole thing is recorded. Yeah. So as you can tell, we see our team. I'm bringing Skeledirge, Escadrille, Skarmory, Raikou, Appleton, and the Urshifu. Overall, I think this is a very great team into this matchup. I'm really proud of how it turned out. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and skip forward to the team preview. Okay, so we see Arboliva, Chi-Yu, Thundurus Incarnate, the Lokix, the Glimmora, and the Annihilape. So, yeah, this is a team that I'm not necessarily looking forward to battling. I am happy not to see Iron Treads or Latios there, but this is honestly probably the scariest 6 that could come in this matchup. So needless to say, we've definitely got our fight, a big fight ahead of us. One thing that I am very excited about is that there is no ground type, so I'm bringing Choice Specs, Thundercats, I have Thunderbolts, Aura Sphere, I believe, Scald, and Volt Switch. So Volt Switch is very free into my opponent's team, so it's a very easy lead for me to make, and that is fantastic. So let's go ahead and bump forward to when we send things out. Alright, so my opponent ends up sending out Majestic, which unfortunately is the Arboliva, and we send out our Raikou. So this is the worst lead for us, but even then it's not a bad lead necessarily, because again, Volt Switch is very free here. And this also brings in Skeledirge for free. This thing can Terra Water, which is a bit scary. I'm expecting a Terra here, so hence why I'm doing this. If I had clicked Aura Sphere here, then this thing would have been chipped down quite a bit. But I was like, I don't really want to do that, so, but again, we don't see the Terra. I'm also keeping in the back of my mind that they could be saving the Terra for Lokix. So I'm just like, I'm not going to try to predict the Terra Water. I am just going to go ahead and switch it to Dirge here. And hopefully claim some lives. I could have also swapped it to Appleton, which I do consider here, but I am scared of Terra Fairy as well. I also think about Skarmory. Honestly, there's a lot of Pokemon here that I could switch into, but in the end, I end up going into Dirge. The Skeledirge just to try and hit things offensively, and we do see the Leech Seed, which is not fun. It's not fun at all. But yeah, so we're gonna get a bunch of HP. I believe here what I end up doing, oh yes, here I'm like, you know what, frick it, I'm going to play hyper offensive, I'm going to go for a Flame Charge, and my opponent ends up actually switching out here, which is honestly pretty decent. They send out one of us, as you can tell I'm doing the one of us, and this brings in Chi-Yu, which was exactly the Pokemon that I wanted to see. So this is exactly why I played this this way. I hit the Flame Charge. We do get some HP recovery with the Terrain, but then my opponent also gets Leech Seed recovery, which is not great, and we are being chipped down considerably, but we literally brought Skeledirge for this thing specifically. Well, not specifically for this thing, but we brought it as a surprise counter to this thing. So a very easy play for me, despite it not KOing necessarily. Earth Power is still the freest play I can make. I believe it's not weakened down by the grassy terrain, if I remember correctly. So we do a massive chunk into the Chi-Yu. The special defense is lowered, which is obviously really great as well. I think that even puts it in possibly in range of a Torch Song, or at least doing a lot of damage with the Torch Song. We do see that we barely live with the Colbur Berry. We will die to the Leech Seed on the next turn, despite the grassy terrain buffs. So that is very unfortunate. But, you know, again, we can freely pick off a KO here, and I think here I'm predicting a switch into the Thundurus. So I go ahead and click Torch Song. And I do correctly predict the swap because I'm like, you know, my opponent's not going to want to let Chi-Yu go down. And we see Tropic coming in, which is in fact the Thundurus. I'm very proud of this prediction. We fire off the Torch Song, doing a big chunk of damage into this thing as well. And we see the special attack being raised. Unfortunately, our HP is recovered, but we don't survive another hit of the Leech Seed. So my opponent gets even more HP back than I would have otherwise had the terrain not been there. But, you know, it is what it is. And this gives me a pretty free switch. Skeledirge did what I really wanted it to do, which is chip things down. Now, did I let it go down too early? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, let's see what I decide to switch in next. So I go ahead and decide to switch in the Raikou. The reason being is because, again, choice specs, I can just fire off a Volt Switch. I believe Volt Switch KOs from this range. So I just click Volt Switch. It's a very easy play for me to make. It is worth noting that the Arboliva still has a Terra, my opponent still has their Terra Captain, we still have our Terra Captain, so I don't know what Pokemon my opponent is going to want to Terra. But again, I am feeling pretty decently confident about this whole situation we're in. So we fire off the Volt Switch, bada bing, bada boom, and the Thundurus goes down. That's a very easy KO for us. So I'm very happy about that. This gives us momentum quite a bit. So, although we do have to figure out a Pokemon that we want to switch in first. And the Pokemon that I end up switching in here is the Appleton, specifically to help take advantage of the grassy terrain, which I think disappears this turn anyways, but I was also like, you know what, this is the best defensive option, this is the best offensive option, this is our Terra Captain, my opponent is going to have to play around the fact that this is our Terra Captain, yeah, so that is the play we are making here. And unsurprisingly, my opponent decides to send in Glimmora, which is not fun. This is the obvious play is obvious. If the terrain was there for one more turn, then this would have been really great. I definitely don't want to get toxic or anything like that. So I go ahead and swap it to Excadrill, who's holding the Lumberry specifically because I am afraid of Corrosion Glimmora, which I think has a very decent chance of coming into my team. And we see that we have the Mold Breaker, which actually I'm not sure if that breaks Corrosion. It might, and maybe I was just stupid. I'm not sure. We do see the rocks get set up on the field, so which is a bit unfortunate. And, you know, that sucks into my team. We do have Rapid Spin on Excadrill, but I am predicting the Annihilape to come in here. So I'm like, the Annihilape's probably coming in. I'm going to go ahead and click Stealth Rocks to severely chip things like the Chi-Yu, even prevent things from switching in reliably, and just keeps taking damage and damage, more damage and more damage, more damage, which is obviously really, really great for us. And also it prevents the Rage Fist from building on Annihilape as well. And I correctly predict that Toddler comes in, which is in fact the Annihilape. Very, very good prediction on our end. Getting up the rocks is very, very nice, and this gives me a very free switch into Skarmory. So I switch it to Skarmory as the Annihilape ends up clicking Bulk Up, which is fine, you know, we have Curse specifically for this. So I go ahead and I just click Curse myself to try to match him. And let's see what happens next. My opponent ends up clicking Taunt! Now, why I didn't think this set would come, I don't know. I think I was predicting a Scarf set to come, but yeah, so Taunt is really, really unfortunate for us, because that means Drill Peck is not going to do anything, and I have to play pretty risky at this point, because this thing is most likely going for a Bulk Up. Annihilape can be a very hard Pokemon to prep around, but we can prep around it. So we send in Thundercats, the Choice Specs, the Raikou, as we see probably another Bulk Up, if I remember correctly. Yes, we do see another Bulk Up, which is not great. So this thing is at +2/+2 now. It does have access to Drain Punch, which I have to keep in mind. But here I just fire off a Shadow Ball. It's the easiest play for me to make. I'm Choice Specs, Shadow Ball. I think there's a role for it to not kill, but in fact I don't even think that it can kill, I don't think, even if it has no HP or Spadef investment. And I think by this point I've kind of figured out, okay, this thing is most likely a bulkier set. So I fire off the Shadow Ball to hopefully deal a massive chunk of damage. And we do see a massive chunk of damage here, but my opponent unfortunately ends up clicking Drain Punch, and that KOs me, and that gives him a lot of HP recovery back, which is not fun. So Raikou goes down, that's our Choice Specs user. it's not the worst case situation in the world, because we do have a guaranteed critical hitter with our Urshifu, which is exactly what we send up next, and we also see that this thing is holding the leftovers, confirming that is most likely a bulky set. So I send an Urshifu here, and threatening with a Wicked Blow, which is very free into my opponent's entire team. My opponent ends up actually deciding to sack off the Chi-Yu, which will take a lot of damage from the Stealth Rocks, and we end up firing off the Wicked Blow, which is very nice for us, obviously. So Chi-Yu goes down here. That's 2 Pokemon on my opponent's team that have gone down, and the threat of the Annihilape is gone for now, which is really, really great for us as well. So what ends up coming in here is none other than Arboliva, and this tells me, okay, this thing is 100% Terra Fairy. It's probably clicking the button right now. I need to keep Urshifu alive. I am afraid of a Terra Blast here. Unfortunately, I don't have much switch-ins for a Terra Fairy Terra Blast. If I had kept Skeledirge alive, then that would have been fantastic, but the reason I decided not to do that was because I just wanted to chip things down enough, especially for Urshifu, for example, to come in and finish the game. But I want to take as minimum damage as possible, so what I end up doing here is I swap into Skarmory. The reason being is because it's the best Pokemon that can tank a Terra Fairy Terra Blast if it's coming out, and you know, it's obviously really great. So I send in Skarmory here as my opponent, I believe, reveals the Terra, and I'll go ahead and skip this animation real quick. But we do see that it is in fact Terra Fairy, and my opponent actually goes for a Strength Sap. So had I sent an Appleton here, then that would have been really great for me, but, you know, it is what it is. Our attack does fall, which is fine, and my opponent gets back up to full, which is not great. So here, predicting the Leech Seed, I go ahead, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to double into Appleton. This thing is Terra Fairy now. I am risking a Terra Blast, but I am Assault Vested. This should be fine in theory, and we can hit our Grass Boost for decent damage now, which is obviously really good. So we see the Pointed Stones get dug into us, and we see the Leech Seed, which thankfully doesn't pop off here, because of the fact that we have not terra'd yet, and we are Grass type. Here, I actually think about terraing into my Dragon type, which is a mistake on my end. I'm thinking Dragon Pulse will do a decent amount of damage, but if I just fire off a hit, I can simply, you know, like, the grassy terrain will boost my Grass Boost to the same point as my Terra. So this was definitely a mistake on my end, I would later figure out. But we do opt to Terra Dragon, revealing our Terra as the Glimmora comes in. I'm thinking here, you know, I was predicting a switch. We get the special defense dropped, we could pop the air balloon, so I'm like, okay, this is fine. Written reality, what I should have done here was I should have just simply gone for an Apple Acid. I should not have terra'd here, because this reveals a lot of pertinent information, so that was definitely a mistake on my end that I made, but, you know, it is what it is. So, we go ahead and send in Excadrill here as I am trying to figure out what to do next, and we see from the Glimmora, we see Mold Breaker, obviously, and then we see that spikes are being set up, so this thing is just hazard stacking against my team, which is not fun. Thankfully, though, we do scare this thing out with another hit, and I think here I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and high horsepower here to fire off a hit. The Annihilape is probably going to come in, but that's fine. I can just, you know, just fire off a hit, and thankfully, actually, the Glimmora ends up going down here, so my opponent did not want to get the Annihilape in, taking damage, so, which I think is a good play, especially if it is, not speed invested, and I can't remember if I did put speed. I think I did put some speed investment, but not a full speed investment in Excadrill, so there's a very good chance that I actually don't outspeed. So we do see the Annihilape coming in here, and I think here what I end up doing is I click high horsepower. I either click high horsepower or swap it to Skarmory. I think what I end up doing here is swapping into Skarmory, predicting a drain. I can't remember, actually. Let's see what I do here. Okay, so actually I do remember what I do here. I go ahead and I stay in and click high horsepower. That's what I thought. Predicting that my opponent, I'm hoping my opponent goes for a bulk up here. This also reveals that we outspeed, but unfortunately my opponent sees the KO, goes for the Drain Punch, which is very unfortunate for me, because I essentially lose my Excadrill, my one way of removing hazards, at this point in the game, meaning the hazards are there to stay. The rest of my Pokemon will be getting toxic and chipped down considerably, which is obviously not ideal. So this was definitely not the best play on my part, but again, this gives me a very free switch into Joestar! Joseph Joestar, the Urshifu, to hopefully fire off a hit. But again, we are taking a decent amount of damage. We essentially get a KO here for free as Urshifu comes in here. But again, this is not very ideal because of the fact that, you know, we're kind of in a rough situation right now. I'm also forced to click Wicked Blow simply because of the fact that Arboliva, I need to scare this thing out. I could have gone for a Poison Jab, but as it turns out, my opponent actually decides to go into Low Kicks, surprisingly enough. And I actually believe we either come close to KOing this, or we don't. Yes, we either come close or we don't. Makes sense. It is also revealed that, you know, obviously this thing can't Terra anymore because of the fact that the, what's-its-face, the Arboliva is already Terra'd. This gives me the freest switch into Lightweight, so that way I can just get Chip off of Rocky Helmet, I can recover HP. It's the very obvious play to make, and that's exactly the play that I want to make. So I go ahead, I go into Lightweight here, to, you know, get some Chip off on this thing as we take damage from the rocks. We see the first impression pop off, and it's revealed that this thing is holding the protective pads. Very annoying, obviously, but, you know, it is what it is. Fearing the Annihilape switch in, I just go ahead and go for a Drill Peck. We see that my opponent just goes ahead and knocks off the Rocky Helmet, which is definitely not ideal. I'm definitely not a fan of that. Thankfully, this thing does go down. But while it is a 2v2, we are definitely on the back foot because it's our defensive wall that's in. The Annihilape can come in for free here, which is exactly what ends up happening, and I am forced to be scared of this thing. I go ahead and fire off another Drill Peck here simply because of the fact that I need damage off on this thing. If it goes for a bulk up, we still have Urshifu with a critical hit Wicked Blow in the back. My opponent will not be able to recover that much HP because of the fact that we are so low, thanks to the damage that Low Kicks did. So Drill Peck is just the easiest play for me to make here. As we do see the Drain Punch pop off, my opponent, we barely live, which is fantastic for us. I think at this point, my opponent was kind of talking. A Rage Fist would have actually KO'd. Because Rage Fist is the freaking broken move, but, we do get a decent amount of damage off, meaning that we can send in Urshifu for free, after Lightweight ends up going down, or we could even send in the Appleton if we so desired. We see the Drain Punch pop off here as the Skarmory goes down, so let's see what comes in next. So I send in Urshifu, and I go for the obvious Wicked Blow, just because there's no reason for me not to here. We see Majestic come back in. We are going to get a decent amount of damage off on this thing, because even though it is resisted, you know, we're still going to do a decent amount of damage, which is obviously very nice. I'm a very big fan of that. This also brings the grassy terrain back up, and now at this point you can probably kind of start seeing why I shouldn't have Terra'd with the Appleton. I'm now weak to Leech Seed, which is obviously not ideal. It was definitely a mistake to Terra on Appleton for sure. I should not have done that, but, you know, again, it is what it is. Here, we just fire off a Poison Jab because I'm not going to be able to get Urshifu back in, thanks to, you know, everything, like all the hazard stacking. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping this will somehow KO, or at the very least get the poison off, so that way the Appleton can hopefully 1v1 the threat. And we do get the poison off, thankfully. We do, in fact, get the poison off, but it is, unfortunately, not enough. As we do die to our own Life Orb chip, the Arboliva does go for a Leech Seed and fails, obviously, because there's no target. The unfortunate thing is, the recovery from my opponent is enough to put him well above the range needed to KO. So, what ends up happening here is, as we could Giga Drain, my opponent goes for a Leech Seed! And this is where, you know, I'm kind of fricked. Regardless, a Rage Fist from Annihilape will definitely KO, so I already pretty much lose this anyways, but again, just the situation around this is, you know, I'm hopeful that maybe somehow I can tank a hit, maybe somehow I can weaken it down enough, and that's kind of my end game plan here. But what ends up happening is I click Apple Acid. I think I click Giga Drain here to try to recover more HP. I could click Apple Acid, but this was just the best play to make because I knew my opponent was going to go for a Drain Punch here. In reality, I would have lost to Rage Fist a while ago anyways, I think, but it is what it is. We fire off a decent amount of damage, and it is revealed to be a 2-shot, but remember that I am Leech Seeded, and this is on the grassy terrain, which means that Annihilape is going to get more than enough HP back to be able to survive another Giga Drain anyways. So regardless, I do lose this game, which is very unfortunate, but, you know, it is what it is. I will spoil it. We do lose 1-0 because, again, Leech Seed, it's pretty obvious by this point that I've lost. Yeah, GG's again to my opponent. A fantastic game for sure. I was definitely kind of shooting myself in the foot after this battle because I was like, dang it, man, I shouldn't have tarried, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I should have prepped more for taunt, and things like that. It was very sad, but, you know, it is what it is. Again, GG's to my opponent. Is a very intense game, a great battle to start things off. Very intense. Just goes to show you the amount of level of power that is in this league for this season of the NBBL, which is very exciting. So, yeah. So I'm just gonna have some random stuff playing in the background so that way you guys can watch. What I've ended up deciding to do for both the low tier and the main season of the NBBL is I'm going to just do pure live commentary for both seasons, and I'm also not going to be doing any team previews on this channel. The reason being is because scripting takes up a lot of time, and I've realized while trying to catch up on videos here that ultimately I'm not going to have enough time to script things out when I go back to dance in a few weeks. So I'm going to have to stop this at this point anyways. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do that. I am really sorry for those who are looking forward to the mix of post commentary and live commentary that I did back last season for this particular one. For low tier, that was always the plan, but the changes now is that that's going to apply to this season as well. Again, I hate that I have to do that, but I've kind of realized, you know what, I don't have enough time to invest in this. I need to be able to get back in shape to work on dance. I have a bunch of other stuff that I got to do before going back into dance, and it's just going to take up way too much time to script, record, and edit everything together. I'm already doing that enough for the SDA as it is. I'm also scripting, recording, editing shorts as well at the same time, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do that. That being said, I will say the team previews, for those of you if you are still interested in team previews, you can go ahead and actually check out the Ko-Fi linked down below as well. There will be a team preview for this game as well as the draft breakdown for the low tier division. They're not going to be edited, they're not going to have any music, they're not going to have anything like that, and they'll be very quick videos, but those are there, available for all tiers for those who are interested. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put the team previews down there. It makes it easier. I don't have to try to make it look as fancy in these videos. I don't have to try to edit anything down, etc. And I can just list off the teams, very easy. The teams, I will be linking the Pokepaste for my teams down in the description below as well, but I won't go into detail about why I'm bringing what I'm bringing. Again, the only reason I'm doing this is because I just don't have the time to really invest in these videos anymore. And I want to make sure that I don't overwork myself. Also, another great reason to check out the Ko-Fi. If I'm able to get a laptop, I can bring team previews back. I can bring team previews back for the videos. So if you guys are interested, please be sure to check out the Ko-Fi down in the description below. Show your support if you are able to. Of course, if you're not able to, that's fine. But if I'm able to get a laptop, then I'll be able to bring back the team previews reliably because I can script and work at the same time at my second job at the dance studio, which is obviously really great. So yeah. That'll pretty much do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, seriously. Please be sure to check out my opponent down in the description below as well. They played absolutely stellarly in this game, and they prepped very, very, very well. And yeah, just in general, it was a very fun time. I'm very excited for you guys to see week 2, because that game was crazy. I've already played it, because this video was supposed to go up on Saturday, and I wasn't able to get it up because SDA, because scripting takes forever. You guys get it. But, yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoy. Please, again, be sure to check out the Ko-Fi. I know I keep plugging it, but in all seriousness, it will help me out a ton in terms of making more content for you guys. Even just a little bit of support helps immensely. So, yeah, there's some incentive for you to check out the Ko-Fi. And, yeah, I'll go ahead and stop talking now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace out, mates!